Thanks for coming. This talk is about evolutionary architectures. You may wonder what does it mean. So I will explain in a bit. This talk won't be actually specific to Angular. I will touch a surface a bit, but it will be specific to front-end architectures in general. But some samples I will give you will be targeting Angular. So once again, thanks for having me. My name is Lukas Fryc. I'm a lead front-end engineer in Exponia, which is a Bratislava-based company. I have more than 10 years experience in front-end engineering, which is my favorite. I love Angular. I love it from first versions, and I must admit I even love Angular 1. I love it even so that we have created a community called Bratislava Angular. So I will later give you a link. We are having some workshops, meetups, and so on. So that passion actually comes from my previous work where I was working for open source communities in Red Hat. So there are some projects you may or may not recognize. But first, let me start what I even mean by evolutionary architecture, and I would like to describe that on our or my story. I was thinking some time ago, like it's several months, and I was struggling whether our project is actually moving into right direction. Is it something that's common? Who was struggling? Who was thinking about whether your project is going into right direction? Yeah. So some of you. It's hard to admit, but I was thinking about it a lot and discussing with other people, not only on the front end but also on the back end side or system architects. And Exponia at this point isn't a small project anymore. It basically what Exponia does, we track data which we can analyze and then you can engage. But it's not that important. Important is that it already has like 60 different Angular modules, and so I would consider it at this point a large application. So it has 60 different features that you can open inside the application. And so the question I was really struggling with was since Exponia is like a really fast-growing company, and everything is constantly changing. We are releasing each week, and in such a pace, it may be really problematic to watch where your project is going. So another question, maybe if you are not already struggling, you already define some architecture for your project. You still may be wondering whether you are going into right direction in the long term. Your architecture may be actually degrading over time. And actually, when discussing that problem with people around, I have noticed that it's actually very common problem, and a lot of people just told me that they are fine with that. And I'm kind of perfectionist, and so I was thinking really it is that way. What can I do about it? And I actually found a very nice book which is called Evolutionary Architecture. It's accompanied with a blog in the same name, under the same name. The book is from Neil Ford and Rebecca Parsons. Do you know? Do you recognize those names? The architects from ThoughtWorks. So ThoughtWorks. So I really recommend to read their blog later. However, what this book told me is that we actually did many things completely right, and it actually helped me to confirm that the path we started is the exactly right approach. We did some mistakes and so on, but still we are on a good path, and this book was a confirmation for me, and that's why I would like to share my experiences with you. Basically, what this book talks about is the base of the architecture. It doesn't focus specifically on front-end, but if you think about it, a lot of architectures in a larger systems can be simply applied to front-end architectures generally. One of the common architectures that you can see around is big ball of mud. Have you heard about that term? Yeah, some of you, perfect, great. And do you maintain some application that was built this way? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've probably dived into these applications as well. Basically, what this graph says, it's a dependency graph where you have classes around a circle, and their connections are dependencies. So you can see that this application may be really unmaintainable at some point. Usually, it's connected with other problems like lack of automated testing and so on. So that's probably architecture that you don't want to see. So if you see that in your project, maybe you should run. However, if we get a little bit more structured, then we get monolith. Basically, big ball of mud is monolith as well, but here we can already see some kinds of architecture if we look really deep. However, what's more important for us is having monoliths that are internally structured, and we can, for example, have modules for each feature. And that's if you are using Angular, you get that for free because Angular modules will give you exactly this if you are using them properly. Then we can recognize also other kinds of architectures like layered architecture. We can see basis of layered architecture in standard MVC model view controller. And for completeness, we can also see event-based architectures around. Also seen even on front end. And something which I wouldn't probably recommend for front-end. Actually, would you consider microservice style architecture for front-end? Is there anyone? Can you imagine it even? Oh, really? Then can we talk later about it? Because one of the basics of microservices is that you shouldn't share the power code, which, for example, visual basis of a structure of your application, some base layout, it has to be shared. So yeah, I can see that, but maybe that's possible, and I would love that in practice, see that in practice. However, you are probably you are probably aware of those architectures, but what this book comes with, which was unique for me, is architecture properties. The book lists around 50 properties, and basically you would love them all to see in your project. You would love to have them all. You know, agility in your project, flexibility, reproducibility, modularity, configurability. You want them all, and I've talked yesterday with my like business colleague, and he asked me, and why they don't have them all? Like I have told him, just give me 200 people, and we will have them all. You know, so what any reasonable project should do is actually choose the ones that are important, but not important for your project, but important for your product, for your business. You are operating in some environment, and you should choose the right properties for your project that are important at particular point in time. You have to see that these properties, the importance of the properties, may actually change over time. So, for example, it happened in Exponia that we haven't cared about performance much. We hadn't have performance problems, but at some point, people start to complain. Like, you know, I wasn't sure what was happening because on my MacBook Pro it was loading like 3 seconds. What's up? That's dashboard type application. It can be loading 3 seconds. That's completely acceptable. But then we measure it properly, and we found that on different devices it happened a lot worse. So what we did, we actually elevated performance factor into our properties, and we went on. But okay, we have architecture, we have the properties of the architecture and their importance. What is special about the book is the way how you should treat those properties. Those are some abstract things that you probably think that your project is modular, it's debuggable, you know. But what's unique about the book is it says that you should measure that all. You should do data-driven development. You should basically ask yourself how fit is actually my architecture at any point in time, and what actually measures the fitness of the architecture are fitness functions. Fitness functions, we can recognize many different kinds of measurements. For example, testability and coverage, two basic fitness functions you can recognize. I believe nowadays it's in almost every project. You should set up some metrics from runtime. For example, how many errors that were released to production have you noticed? What's the runtime performance? What was initial load time, and so on. For example, some conventions can be some conventions that are guarded typically by linters could be taken as a fitness function. Some static analysis applies as well, like dependencies between projects. If we have, like Exponia have something like modular monolith, and we are measuring whether there are circle dependencies. There are none. That's fine. However, we have cross-module dependencies. We have dependencies on for example, our our dashboard module depends on a reporting module and on trends module and so on. So there are cross-module dependencies, and we can actually recognize there are problematic parts when it comes to refactoring and moving the project forward. So those are fitness functions, and the idea is that when you have architecture and you can continuously measure how fit it is, you can actually change it, because you will every time know whether your project is still fit, even though you don't watch every change in the project. You will be fine, because your all your checks of the architecture will be actually coded in some sort of either automatic or manual check. So basically, what we should do, we should track as much as data about architecture as possible, and then automate them as much as possible. So that's what we did. For example, Expona started 1 year ago refactoring from Angular 1 to Angular 2. Right now, you can see the blue trend says that we are almost in 50% after a year. You know, my one of the stakeholders, the founder of the company, asked me how much it will take to refactor the application. And I said, I don't know, like 3 months, 1 year, 3 years. So I think now we are on a target. If nothing happens, we are on target to complete it in another year, which was my it wasn't my estimate actually at all. I don't like estimating these projects, but you can see that we track in this regards 2 properties: Angular 1 to Angular 2 progress, then JavaScript to TypeScript, because the project was originally Angular.js in pure JavaScript. So we were actually rewriting like, let's say we are not pushing for rewrite. We rewrite as we go. What has to go and be rewritten is rewritten. So if you look at it, it's pretty good progress, because we still go, and after 1 year we will have Angular 2, and we don't have much problems with that. We can discuss it later if you want. You can catch me. That's not my point. However, what you can see from the data is that JavaScript to TypeScript progress is similar to Angular refactoring, but at some point we decided to rewrite all services from Angular.js, and instead of using the upgrade of the services, we basically switch them all to Angular injectables. And if you think about it, I find it kind of hard task to do. Let me put a parallel to the story. Let's say you have some gas powered car, and you want to switch it to electric vehicle. How would you do that? You know, just consider you are changing the car in a state when it's running on a highway. So it's speeding on a highway, and you can imagine that you will change wheels, but let's imagine that you will change engine at that point. Yeah, it's not that simple, but in a software project it's actually possible. And what helps a lot is having tools that actually guide you throughout the process. One of the tools that helps the team a lot and that's words of my team members is static typing. So I really encourage, if you haven't, if you aren't into static typing, then really consider that, because working on a larger project without static typing, it's really a nightmare. And also tests. Between we even started, we built happy path tests for at least half of the application, just to make sure that we can go fast. Before, there were no end-to-end tests. So before we started, we actually written these tests. And I was listening. I was listening yesterday for another migration story, and they had a pretty similar experience from I have seen. But what the book says, I already told you, but you should basically build all these fitness functions and treat them as all the other tests and all the other build checks. You should put them into your deployment pipeline, so you can at any point you can see them, you can track them. You can, for example, use a GitLab that will upload the statistics to Sonar or some other tool that can track that. So this is one simple case or simple case that we use refactoring from Angular 1 to Angular 2. But now we are considering adding more and more fitness functions, and we actually see that it encourages experimentation. And another story. Since Exponia is in a hybrid mode now, it uses Angular 1 and Angular 2. It's on the halfway, and that's a huge project, and it will last for another year. And I was a bit reluctant to start another huge initiatives in while we are undergoing such a change. However, if you think about it, you can do incremental changes and you can do them in parallel. Your project won't actually, like me as a programmer, I would like the project to converge to some point where everything will be same, or everything will use similar concepts. Everything will be under conventions, and it will be a nice place to be. However, I have recognized that this point probably will never come. You know, I'm sure that at some point something more than Angular will come, and maybe or some new breaking change in Angular will come, and we will start to leveraging that for our good. It's perfectly imaginable now. For example, we are just introducing NgRx to the application. If you don't know what's NgRx, it's basically the Redux implementation for Angular, which is leveraging RxJS reactive streams as a base, and it's perfect tool for decoupling. You can basically have several layers that aren't talking directly, but they are talking via message passing or action passing in a case of NgRx. So you can see that one of the problems that architectures have, the too tight coupling, are actually solved very nice in NgRx. And but how to introduce into large application such a change? Basically, what I would recommend at that point is some partial update, like some experiment in the code base. Let's say that let's treat your modular monolith like a microservice, and in microservices it's encouraged to experiment, to rewrite a whole microservice to another programming language, to another framework, to another library. So we can do that in a modular monolith. We can still do that, even it's large application. However, we have to track that. We have to be sure that we are not breaking any architectural functions, fitness functions, that we established before, and while we do that, we are fine. And for example, what we are doing, we are accommodating one of the modules to leverage NgRx, so we can see how it looked like before the refactoring and after the refactoring. So one of the fitness functions is we can actually measure how good the NgRx is, but we have feelings. We have team of programmers, and they can feel that they know how they feel about the changes in the code base. So they can compare how it looked before, how it looks now, and if that works out at the end, we will go with NgRx and try to use it in many more modules. So at first we apply partially to one module. Then a critical point comes where you have to decide whether you will continue, and then I think that's from a management point of view, it's important to take a decision and basically decide with other stakeholders that you will go for all or nothing. It's an important step, because you remember that we are migrating from Angular 1 to Angular 2, and what would happen if in the half of the project the stakeholders told me, you know, we shouldn't be migrating. Okay, but we are on the half of the way, so to revert the changes, it's a 1 year 1 year away. So that's perfectly imaginable. So under these conditions, after using fitness functions, after using incremental changes and tracking them, I'm finally happy with where architecture is going, and I don't know about large problems that we are seeing in terms of the in the architecture. So with that, I would like to thank you for listening. I hope it gave you something, and that you will be happy with your architecture. Thank you.